we did is we did some root cause analysis of what's causing all those old confessions. And what's really interesting is the top 4 are business analysis, poor architecture, no documentation, and no methodology. So can some of you here relate to that? Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting actually when we looked at that is none of those 4 is there any training in Trailhead. But we are talking to Salesforce about now we have this data starting to help them put more Trailhead content in there. So let's start with number 4, methodology. This whole idea of actually managing your org through its implementation, which means, yes, you should be having sandboxes. One of the confessions I saw there, sandbox hasn't been refreshed within the last 15 months. Another confession was, we found that half our sales guys were putting data into the sandbox and the other half were putting it in production. And now we don't know what to do. Okay? And that's caused by everyone having a system admin access. Again, so if we think about that methodology, capturing requirements and mapping processes, which arguably is the most important thing. So who here has a bit of an issue with adoption? Everybody? Yeah? Adoption doesn't start back here at training and feedback, it actually starts up here. Adoption's a lot easier if you build what they want, not what they thought they needed or might have. Okay? Also, that capturing requirements and mapping processes is a really great way of saying no by saying yes. So someone comes to you and said, I really need another pick list value, and your brain is screaming, no, we've already got 98, we don't need another pick list value. But how do you say no? Sometimes you say yes, show me how this fits within our overall end-to-end business process, and then as they work their way through, they go, oh, I don't need that, or I do need that, but really what I need is this. So this business analysis is really valuable. So let me just show you what I mean by that. It starts by some very simple business process mapping. Very simple approach of inputs, qualified lead, going to an activity called present to customer with an output. Any process diagram without any lines or without any text is rubbish, is garbage. Okay, so what's a qualified lead? When I talk to a sales guy, a qualified lead is they're just about to place a purchase order. And if I go and talk to marketing, what's a qualified lead? They walk past the stand and I manage to scan them. Okay? That mismatch is where we have problems. So any activities where we don't have inputs, where we've agreed what those lines are, is really important. So this is a great way of starting to understand what the end users really need and want. Plus this content also becomes the end user training. It becomes the content for user acceptance testing. So if I could deliver this as pop-up training, fantastic, I've actually done 2 jobs. And if you're highly regulated, this is what the regulators look at to prove we're doing what we said we should. So don't think of this as, oh, well, I drew some boxes and lines and now we can get on with the real work. This is critically important because as you start to work your way through here, or drill down to the next level of detail, you're starting to get new requirements, validate existing requirements, and throw away requirements which were just garbage. So I can keep drilling down, or I could link to some supporting information. So that's how I launched the estimating app. That's how, there's the documentation that says, this is my standard document for how I write a proposal. So think of this as both training material as well as the way to understand what to go and build. Making sense? Every one of you could do this. Yeah, okay? Not difficult to do. So that's the first 2 boxes, the purple one, capture requirements and map business processes. The next one, when I start to look at the root cause analysis, is documentation. Again, huge issue, which is people have built stuff and built stuff and built stuff and built stuff and never written down why. So I can come and look at your org and probably worked out what you did, and I'd probably be quite disappointed, horrified, pick an adjective, but I don't know why you did it. You may have built it in a certain way because you didn't want to write code. You may have built it in a certain way because the features didn't currently exist within Salesforce. So that why is really important, that documentation. And that documentation could be I don't know, a photograph of a whiteboard where you were sketching stuff out. It could be a specification. It could be notes. It could be links to a wiki. So the trick here is connecting it back to what you've built inside Salesforce. So almost building a data dictionary where you can see everything that's in your org. So all the Apex classes, all the Lightning pages. But then if I get into a bit more detail, say, let's just look at an object. There's a custom object called project. I can now see everything that's in that object. There's the API name, how many fields, but then really digging into some detail, going by record count, which ones of those record types are used? Okay? How many of you have got 15, 20 record types, but no idea whether you can delete them or not? Okay? And then maybe actually field impact. Tell me which fields have got no data whatsoever, because the user absolutely needed that field and then somehow never filled it out. So I was talking to a customer the other day, they said we've maxed out a count, we've got 500 fields. And we looked at this and we went, 119 of them have no data whatsoever. And he went from sad to slightly happier. He now has to go and delete them, but at least he now has some confidence that there's no data there. But he can't necessarily delete them, because they may be using an integration. So again, you need to do a bit more digging, but at least you know where to focus the effort. So we probably could just tell you, by field, which ones have got data in them. So at least you get a very quick view about where you should focus your cleanup efforts. Let me just drill down a bit further. Let's go down to a field. And I don't know, let's pick say the budget field. So I can edit the description, because I know you all fill out descriptions. You know, we run a report to tell you what percentage of descriptions are completed. Okay? So you know when the consultants here say, we've finished all the work, we've done all the documentation, you can run a report and go, nah, I don't think you did. Could we fill those descriptions out? But also, this is where you can start to add the documentation. So if you've built out your data dictionary, I can start to then connect it. So there's one place where all the connections are. So again, you don't have to use elements.cloud, you can build an Excel spreadsheet, I don't really care, but what the point is, you need a data dictionary where you can start to connect all those assets you've already got. The issue is they're spread all over hard disks on people's, or spread all over shared drives. You need one central data dictionary where you've got one place where you can start to see all this. And that's the way you start to get some confidence about the impact analysis, so you can start to speed up your agility. The fact that you can make changes, because currently how do you make a change? You hit deploy and then you go, oh, get away with it. You have no idea what the impact is likely to be, yes? You delete a field and you have no idea what's likely to happen. And that's not a great place to be. Certainly not when the application you've got is a strategic application. Okay? Particularly if you count yourself as an accidental admin who's somehow been launched into this. You need some confidence that you can start to drive around that methodology with some confidence that if we change things, we're not going to break things. So that's where this bit comes in. Tell me which field, if this is field, this is the budget field, tell me where, if it's got data, tell me where it's used. It's used in 2 validation rules. It's not used in any of those 12 places. So these are the sorts of things you should be thinking about, which is, if I make changes, what's the impact going to be? And ideally we should be making that impact analysis as we're doing the business analysis, not as we're writing the code or making the configuration changes. The earlier on you can do this, the better chance you have of actually driving around that cycle more quickly. And everybody says to me, that's great, Ian, but I live in Salesforce and you're in this funny app. Well, that's fine. Everything I've just shown you will pop into the right panel, Lightning willing. With a Chrome extension, we can dump that all into Salesforce where you live. So there is all that information sitting inside Lightning, all classic, in the right panel. So suddenly you can start to make some decisions which keep you out of here. Because that's fundamentally what it's about, isn't it? I know everybody gets to the book and goes, where's my confession? I think you could all go to, like, pick any one of these and go, when a Salesforce user tells me she clones the contact each time she needs to log a call because she doesn't know how to use the log a call feature. But you can open it up anywhere. And And every one of these, there's something where you go, oh, I could have done that. So the last piece in this is any of this documentation, so that there's a document you've added, with one click, wouldn't that be cool if I could make that pop-up help inside Salesforce? I've done all the work, so I can. Let me just go to the project object. Just do a quick refresh on that page. I thought I was doing so well. And you can see up there, that's turned purple. There's a little purple help icon which you wouldn't normally see inside Salesforce. If you click on that, there's the pop-up help. And what's really cool is you can get the users to rate it. So you can very quickly go around that cycle of saying, if it wasn't right for you, let's go back and change it and get that positive reinforcement. The other really neat thing is if they go, I've looked at the help, you can look at the report and go, no, you didn't. Or another thing you could do is you could actually just put a random code at the bottom of your help topics, and they have to quote that code before they get any support. So at least you know they've scrolled to the bottom. Okay? Or at a minimum, they can just click leave feedback, and they can start to leave some feedback. Because even if you've written no help and you've just implemented Lightning, the ability to start to capture some feedback and get that positive cycle going. Someone said to me the other day, can I turn feedback off? The answer is, I'd spend my time trying to get feedback, let alone turn it off. I want to find out why my adoption is so low. You've spent all that effort building these apps. You've spent all that money with licenses. Surely we want to make sure everyone is using them the way you expected, or if they're not, it's two issues. It's either a training issue or a disciplinary issue. Okay? Either you've got to do it and for legal reasons, or you haven't been trained well enough, or maybe the last option is we need to change the way we work. But we need that information to be able to drive around that cycle. So that was that last box there, which is the training and feedback. But bear in mind that training and feedback feeds on the documentation that you've created inside that data dictionary. Because then you've got some chance of maintaining it and keeping that cycle going. Because we don't implement Salesforce once, do we? We implement it like every 2-week cycle, every 3-month cycle. And we need to be able to get around that cycle more quickly to drive that level of agility. And more importantly for all of you, to stay in control of that. The worst word that you can all hear is the word just. Could you just add this? Could you just add that? And if you've got no way of pushing back, you just keep adding more and more stuff. So, good question for you. How many lead source values is the maximum number you're allowed? I had no idea, but someone had a confession 1,000. I mean, the number of confessions where people have maxed out things. I've maxed out lead source values. We had a director who said I wanted these multi-select pick lists to make sure we had the correct for lead sources. And when you looked at the possible combinations, it was 8 million. Okay? Now, every one of the confessions you read through basically goes back to those core problems. Poor business analysis, poor architecture, thinking about how the data model works, poor documentation, and then not having a methodology which you're going through in a structured way. My sense is if you can fix those, every one of you will have a more comfortable life. And if you look at the book goes that way with all the OrgConfessions. If you turn it over, we have some OrgZens, which is where we hope you all get to, where you can have a nice calm org, where you're maintaining it. So unfortunately, we don't have very many Zens compared with confessions. I'm trying to get more Zens. I'm trying to get all of you to have more Zens. So, to support you, the application I've just been showing you, you can run a 14-day trial in your org. It takes 2 minutes to run the setup, about an hour or so to run the sync, and suddenly you'll see your org, and you can either go, yeah, or whatever adjective you want to use, and then you can start to think about what you do next. If you say, I absolutely can't afford it, sure, export it to an Excel spreadsheet and start building that data dictionary. We hope that there's enough value there where you'll go, $1,700 a year for one org, that's not that bad. But again, I don't have your budgets.
A deadly threat is choking the life out of every Salesforce org. It's called uncontrolled agility. From the makers of Snakes on a Plane and Fields on an Object comes OrgConfessions, the movie.
Spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round, round, round.
This harrowing story is based on over 500 real-life events.
You spin me right round, baby, right round.
The very existence of the ecosystem is under threat.
Baby, right round, round, round.
We have the tools to fight back. Process mapping, org insights, documentation.
You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round, round, round. You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round, round, round.
Featuring classics like Confession 169, changing the prod login to kittiesarecute.my.salesforce.com. There is hope. It doesn't have to be this way. You can be an awesome admin. Elements.cloud gives you the superpowers to save the day. Get it at an org near you right now.